He's going to talk really, really slow tonight, okay? Now, we got some other stuff to add in. If we'll just see what the time looks like, okay? But it's going to be great, and I'm excited to hear Levi's trip. Be praying for EBC Kids and Hope Youth Ministry. Let me see here. Of course, Saturday, the conference call, their Bible study with Bobby Thomas, and that the information's in there. And this Sunday's going to be exciting. We got Rev Kev's going to be bringing the message for the Gideons. He always just does a wonderful job, so just be praying for him this week. So, and then, of course, the graduation senior recognition service at 6. And I was looking at that, and Marcy's got that all planned out. It's going to be really a great service, so you don't want to miss that. And then we'll go over and have a reception afterwards. If you want to get them a card or something, just do that as well. I think the names, there's still some names on the back outside of the youth room. So if you need the names of the graduates.
And every time you say Rev Kev, you get $7.50 in royalties, so you can say it.
Okay, so Tom gets a royalty off that name. So, yeah, that's pretty good. Rev Kev. So, yeah. So any other announcements we need to make? Yes, as far as I know. Let me go. We'll get on our prayer. We'll do a prayer time in just a second. And I thought since it's a mission night, I had this. I was going to use some time. And I thought this went so good with the mission night. So, Amy Carmichael was a missionary in India in the 1920s and 30s. And actually, she was from Ireland. She went to India, never did go back to Ireland. She was there 51 years. Her ministry was rescuing children who would have been used as part of a sexual ritual in the Hindu temples. You know, they just used them as prostitutes. She would buy them and then raise them. They had different homes for them. And, of course, they would, take care of them. There was a safe place and teach them the Bible and teach them about Jesus. But in 1931, she was praying one day and said this. She said, Lord, whatever you want for my life, that's what I want to do. Whatever it costs, whatever it takes, whatever you do whatever you want to do in my life. Well, the next day, she fell down and she broke several bones and rendered her basically immobile for the next 20 years. She is bedridden for 20 years. She couldn't have the same, workload that she had, with the children, but she did not get bitter. She decided that this was the answer to her prayer. She said the Lord's gracious way of allowing her a career in writing letters and books and poems. And so this young lady from Ireland, following Jesus, she believed to India, following Jesus to rescue children, looking for the Lord's will. And this terrible accident took place, and she still continued to follow God's will and figured that was her will for her life. And she wrote a poem. She wrote all kinds of poems, but listen to this little poem that she wrote, though. She said, Hast thou no scar, no hidden scar on foot or side or hand? I hear thee sung as mighty in the land. I hear them hail thy bright ascendant star. Hast thou no scar, hast thou no wound? Yet I, Jesus, was wounded by the archers, spent, leaned me against the tree to die, and sent and rent by ravenous wolves that encompassed me. I swooned. Hast thou no wound, no scar? Yet as the master shall the servant be, and pierced be the feet, and that follow me. But thou art whole, can he have followed far who has no wound or scar? Isn't that something? Again, how much are we willing to sacrifice for the Lord? How much are we willing to, to follow him where he wants us to go? But just her whole attitude and just her whole trust in the Lord that, even though she's going to be bedridden 20 years, that was God's will, and she was going to serve the Lord from there. So I thought that was a very, very good message, okay, and a good challenge for us tonight. And so let's go ahead into our prayer time then. I'm not talking to Ed this week, so I'm not for sure. So, but of course, just remember Ed and Martha. Any other prayer request? Joanna's mom and sister. Yeah, somebody remember Joanna, who? Soto. Yeah, let's say. Okay, anything else?
Denise's sister needs some prayer. She was released yesterday from the hospital after spending 3 days in it. Um, her, like when they released her, or today, they're having problems with her blood sugar just outrageously spiking. Like before she ate breakfast today it was like 115, which is cool. But after she finished her breakfast, it's spiked to over 400. And when they released her from the hospital, they gave her a referral for an endocrinologist. They seem to be thinner than hen's teeth around here in North Georgia and everywhere else. And just trying to get her in to see an endo to figure out what the heck is going on because the stuff she ate, like, no bread, no carbs, and all of a sudden her blood sugar spikes to well over 400.
Okay.
So it's crazy. She just needs to get in to see an endo.
Okay, so just pray for Denise's sister, and they can find a doctor to go to. What was Mary? Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Martha's grandson is in hospital. Wesley. Oh, ruptured colon. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Well, I'm going to ask Tom, won't you lead us in prayer? Give us a few minutes to pray, and then close us in prayer tonight, okay? And then, come on.
First of all, Father, we thank you for the gift of another day. Help us to use it wisely tonight. We thank you for the gift that we can come here, openly worship, study, learn, and grow in our faith in you. Father, you've heard these requests.
I'm going to open up our song time tonight just by posing a question. What is your theme? What is the melody that people are hearing as you enter a room? Is it like this? Or is it like this? All right. So, this song's called I Love to Tell the Story. I love to tell the story of unseen things above. Jesus and his glory, of Jesus and his love. I love to tell the story because I know it's true. and his love. May that be our theme, church. On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. And I love that old cross, where the dearest and best for a world of lost sinners was slain. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. On that old rugged cross, so despised by the world, was a wondrous attraction for me. For the dear Lamb of God left his glory above to bear it to dark Calvary. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. In the old rugged cross, stained with blood so divine, stood a wonderful beauty I see. For 'twas on that old cross Jesus suffered and died to pardon and sanctify me. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. To the old rugged cross I will ever be true, its shame and reproach gladly bear. Then he'll call me someday to my home far away, where his glory forever I'll share. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. Amen.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Can you hear me? So I'm going to talk about my recent mission trip to Elizabethton, Tennessee. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about the group that I partnered with to go on this trip. So the BCM, which stands for Baptist Collegiate Ministries, is present on most of our larger campuses here in the South. And what you see in that picture on the left is on Tuesday nights, we have a worship service called The Well. And the campus minister, Stephen, at the beginning of the semester, he'll kind of have a overarching theme that he wants to talk about. And then he will invite different preachers from Baptist churches in the Chattanooga area, and they'll cover some portion of that theme throughout the semester on our Tuesday night well services. And so throughout the semester, each week, Tuesday nights are probably my favorite because of that service that we get to go to. But what the BCM does for spring break is we do mission trips. And so this year they did 4. One was to Puerto Rico, one was to Argentina, one was to Panama, and the last one was to Elizabethton. And initially I was kind of on the fence about whether or not I wanted to go, but then one of my buddies, Nathan, he was like, I'm going on this Elizabethton one, so you're coming with me. And so we ended up going on it. And before I dive into what we did day by day, the Tennessee Baptist Disaster Relief was the one that was kind of overseeing the entirety of the trip. And they were partnering with Appalachian Service Projects. And they were kind of both in that area helping the victims from the flooding that they had there. So before I move on to the day-to-day stuff, are there any questions over the BCM or anything I've covered so far?
A lot of us would recognize it as a BSU program.
Yeah, the BSU is what it was formerly called back in the good old days.
Levi, like, I know you went North Carolina, the flooding there. How different was it there from this?
I didn't go on the North Carolina trip, but there was some in our church that did help with the North Carolina trip. They were doing a lot of logging type work. So I know Dad and Ethan went, I think Mom went, and then the Duncans from here went. And they were doing cutting up trees and logs and that sort of stuff. This was more of a construction type trip. So going into it, they told us, you're going to be doing construction work, but beyond that, we have no idea if it's going to be framing, if it's going to be finishing, or whatever it's going to be. So they just come with willing hearts, and we'll put you to work. And so that's what we did. But day one, there wasn't too much to it. It was travel day, and thankfully it was a pretty boring day. No police officers, no crashes, anything like that. So we go, and it's about a 3.5, 4-hour trip from Chattanooga to Elizabethton. So we get there, and we're staying at one of the Baptist churches in the city, and we are in Sunday school rooms with air mattresses, and that's our accommodations for the week. Thankfully, they did have hot showers, so that was good, but the Tennessee Baptist Disaster Relief, they would provide you with a hot breakfast and a hot dinner, and then you had a bag lunch for taking out on the job site while you were working. Are there any questions before we go on to day 2?
Levi, was there other people there besides you?
Yes, there were. So there was the BCM, and we partnered with Dallas Bay, and they sent a group of, I think, 6 or 7 guys from their church that all had construction experience. And so we were our own little group there, and then they had, I think it was like 70 or 80 other people there that were also volunteering that week, but you pretty much stayed with the groups that you came with. So they would send us out to 2 or 3 different job sites within our own group. Any other questions? So day 1, you'll notice in the top picture, this is an Appalachian Service Project build. They were building, I think, 27 houses. This was number 27 or 28. And they didn't have a girder installed underneath all of those houses. So they'll get calls from the people that moved in, like a couple months after they moved in, like, why is my floor sagging? Why are my walls cracking? And so they quickly realized there was no girder underneath any of the houses. So they called us and were like, can you send a group of guys or a group of people over and install a girder? And you'll notice under there's about 3 feet of head clearance. So we were on our hands and knees the whole day, digging holes that were, I think they were 24 by 24 by 20 inches deep to put the posts in, pour concrete, and then build the girder. So that was a very fun and dark day under the house, but it was a lot of fun. And then after we got done with that project, you go back to the church, you have dinner, and then you get showers, and then we had an evening devotion that we did. And then we kind of had a team meeting after that, kind of discussing what we're going to do the next day. And they told us they were planning on the girder to take 2 days for us to accomplish, and we did it in one. So they're like, we have no idea what you're going to be doing tomorrow. So we all went to bed like, oh, I want to know what we're doing the next day. But it was good. And before I move on, are there any questions on this build or this project?
Was the Appalachia, was that a community type thing?
They have, I think, 2 or 3 outposts in that area. And then the Tennessee Disaster Relief's over the whole state. But they were both in that area, so they were both tackling it at that time. Anybody else? I don't remember what the length of that one was, but it was a project. It was pretty heavy, that's for sure. Anybody else? All right, so day 3, we woke up and they said they had come up with this project. And it was a lady who owned a trailer, and it had flooded, because that was the disaster that happened in Elizabethton, was the floods. And they had a group previously come in. You can see that they had cut the facing on the wall, and they'd pulled up all the insulation. And we were tasked with pulling out the rotten subfloor and putting down new subfloor. And before I go into that, I'm sure a lot of you can imagine the group from Dallas Bay, they were a bunch of experienced guys with this. And then you got a group of like 20 college kids with varying degrees of skills with this type of work. And so it's hard to see, but there's a guy that is under the house, and you can see his orange hat sticking through. So about, I don't know, probably an hour or two into this job, the Dallas Bay people or guys, they saw that Andrew and I, we knew our way around. We'd done this type of stuff before, and so they kind of gave us the layout, what we needed to do, and then we tackled that portion of it. And what you see in that picture is just before Andrew screws a screw into my thumb, which thankfully that was the only, or not really injury, it wasn't bad, but the only mishap we had on the trip. But that day was spent ripping out the old subflooring, installing new subflooring, and then there were some other little things around the house that we did. But that was pretty much the meat of that day. And then again, it was go back to the church, dinner, clean up, and then our daily devotional. So before we move on, are there any questions on that one?
Levi, was it like, did they have everything cleaned up from the flood? Like, was it still dirt, mud?
For the most part, on all the projects that we were done, they had what's called mud out already accomplished. So we were going in, and it was a pretty clean work environment, and they were pretty well prepared for us to come in and do the work that they wanted done. Anybody else? They had already gone through like the day before, and they had done different sprays, and I think they set off they have those gas fog machines, and they had sent one of those fog machines off inside of it as well. But behind, you can't see in that picture, they had an oven right behind us, and we pulled that oven, and there was black mold everywhere under that. So after we finished doing the subfloor that day, we set off another fog machine in their house to try to kill all that. But I had left my mask off for 30 minutes after lunch. And then when we got back to the church, I could feel it in my throat. I was all stopped up and my throat was sore, but it was good. It was a good day. So day 4, this is where the fun began. So we were a brand new house. And of course, they did not have a girder underneath this one either. But we weren't on that portion of it. So we were putting up exterior walls that day, and there's not really much to talk about on that day. It was pretty much everyone just kind of had their task, and we did it. And we ended up getting 3 of the 4 exterior walls set that day. And then that evening in the bottom picture, you can see me underneath one of the girls on our trip's car. On going into the properties, they said that they had cleared out, I think it was 15 feet of sand that the riverbed had deposited in this area. And we're probably, in this location, probably a quarter of a mile, maybe half a mile from the river. And they had, I think it was 13 or 14 feet that they'd already cleared out. And there's still another, where they're building this house on, another foot of sand just immediately to like the sides of the house that they still have to grade out. But she had hit one of the bumps in the sand and tore the skid plate off the bottom of her car, so we were underneath there zip tying it up. But that was that was a fun little excursion that day. Are there any questions on that?
How big was the house that you was actually building?
This one was, I think, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and then had a small living room and small kitchen. So they're not too big. They're all single story with 3-foot crawl space for the most part. So, I did not.
You had two more. You go see all these girls and get
If you notice in that picture from the bottom, the second day we were there, it was an all-girl crew, and then me and Tim. So that was a fun day. But no, the next day, day 5, we went back to that house, and you see all the interior walls. So it was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house, it looks like. But we got all the interior walls set up that day, and they were starting to work on the porch whenever we were leaving. And they wanted us to come back the final day and start setting roof trusses on. But Friday was going to be our day to travel back, so we stopped with getting all the interior walls set up, squaring up the house, which I'd never done that. After you put up the interior walls, how they square it was it was neat. I'd never seen that before. But then at the end of the day, you can see the ladies on the porch. Her name is Skeeter, and she was sick for most of the week, so she didn't come out much. But she was super, super thankful. And then on each of the job sites that we left throughout the week, we would always have the entire group sign a Bible. And then the guy from Dallas Bay would write a little message in it and make sure that we shared the gospel with them before we left. And she was, like I said, super, super thankful for that. And then we got back to the church, and then same kind of evening routine, dinner, devotion, shower, and then our debrief for the next day, which Friday was supposed to be our travel back day. But one of the other groups had started a ramp project at a different house, and they got there thinking that they were just going to be finishing up the ramp, and it ended up being the group before did not know what they were doing, and so the ramp was all wrong. So they tore out the ramp that the other crew had installed, and they had got the footers and posts installed, and they'd got it framed up, but they still needed to do railing, and they needed to do all the decking boards. So they asked if 2 or 3 of us would be willing to stay back and help them finish that project. So that's what we did. So that was a great group because all of us knew what we were doing. And so we broke off in groups of 2 and 3. So me, Noah, and Nathan, who Nathan was my buddy that said that you need to go on this trip, we were in charge of doing all the decking boards, which is pretty simple. And then the other guys from Dallas Bay handled doing the railing and just the railing and all the posts for that. And what you can see it comes kind of down from the top and then down to the side of the house. And at the end of the house, there's going to be a third portion of it that goes perpendicular to where that one's facing. And that's probably another 2 feet off the ground. But they just wanted to get at least this portion finished, so the next group comes, it should be pretty hard to mess that portion of it up. So we got a good base on that. But then day 6, we left there probably around noon. And then Dallas Bay guys, we went to Cracker Barrel, and we had lunch there, and then came back, and that was pretty much the trip.
Did you have any VWs on your trip?
We did not. I don't know if we could have taken it if we had VWs on the trip. So with that, go back one. Any other questions about the trip?
Are you ready to go back?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So I like the working trips and because I do woodworking, so it was a lot of using those type of tools and those skills. So once the Dallas Bay guys realized that a couple of us knew what we were doing, they just kind of gave us a task and said, you guys handle it, and we'll go help these other college kids that have no idea what they're doing. But it was a lot of fun.
I've never met a rat that I don't like.
I think the next generation's ready.
Yes.
Because you won't sleep in a chair.
Yeah. Do what? Hey, once I graduate, we'll be ready. Any other questions?
You just won't appreciate till you do ramp with VW.
I've done a couple with them. It's VW fell asleep that one day, and then, well, we.
It's better for us if he is.
It's true. More progress that way. No, on that ramp that we did, me and BW ran to Ace that day to get some stuff, And I think there's a 5-gallon bucket of something in the parking lot, and we managed to hit that 5-gallon bucket of whatever it was. Yeah, it was. Yeah, yep. That was a fun little job there. But yeah. Mhm. Oh yeah. Whenever we left this trip, there were still, they're still there working. They said they were there for, I think, 8 months before we got there, doing all the clearing out and getting everything prepped for the rebuild. But there's still loads and loads of work. They were expecting to maybe be done by the end of this year. And that's what they've got crews coming in 1 week at a time throughout the rest of the year doing just the same type of stuff that we did. Yep. Civil engineering. So I got 1 more year, and then I'm done. I got my last in-person finals tomorrow, and then I got another one Friday. So. Do what? Oh yeah, that's right in my degree, yeah. No, the reason I was hesitant to go on this trip is because I'm interning with TVA, and so that was a full week that I could have worked with them, but then Nathan was like, we got to go on this trip. And so after thinking about it, I was like, yeah, I need to go on this trip. And I'm glad I did, because it was an amazing trip to go on.
Now, the house you build, would it be like a subdivision, or is it kind of?
This one, I think they might have, I don't know if they were planning to build other houses in that area, but this was one house in the middle of just a big sand plain. And then the house we were installing the girder underneath, there was a couple other houses in the area, and I think there's plans to build more. But we were on the very preliminary side of that stuff. So I'm not sure what progress they've made since then.
So how did they square it up?
So what they do is they will put a nail in each of the ends, and then they will tie a string all the way across, and then you go, I think it's like 8-foot sections at a time, and they have a spacing board, and you just want the spacing board to be just touching that screen, and if it's not, you pull in, push out, whatever, and then you nail it down, and they get it all rigid for the trusses to come on, which is what they were wanting us to do the next day, but we were like, we got to go, because it's another 3.5 hours back. Then you got to catch up on your sleep Saturday, and then you got church Sunday. So, but it was a great trip.
Does homeowners finance most of it, or?
I don't think so. I think most of it was through the Tennessee Baptist Disaster Relief, and then I think the Appalachian jobs were similar, where they were doing most of the funding. And in that community, they had one of the business owners had a storehouse, and so they had a storehouse of any building materials you would need, and that was completely free for the Tennessee Baptist to use on their different job sites. And I think Appalachian also had their own storehouse and similar stuff. So most of our equipment came from those 2 storehouses, sheetrock and lumber and all that stuff.
Did you hear anything while you were there about how Asheville's coming?
No.
Asheville got,
Yeah, they got hammered, yeah.
they got hammered. I wasn't sure.
And the one picture, I don't know if you can see it. No, you can't see it. So behind this house, there's a church, and they said that church also has a basement, and the water, I think, rose, it was maybe 15, 20 feet. And so they said the entire basement of that church was covered in mud and sand, and it took them weeks to get that dug out. And then you can see, if you're going through like the different areas, you can see the water line up on top of, like the steeple on the church, you see the water line on the top floor. And it was pretty, I don't know, humbling's not the right word, but it was very, I can't think of the right word, but to see how high the water got, and then there's some stories, there was one guy, he was a Vietnam veteran, I think is what he was, and he was literally clinging on to his porch post, and then there was a boat from, I forgot where it was from, but they were going down to Asheville through the water, and they had closed off that area because it was so treacherous, and so he was on his way back, and he saw this guy, and one of the other groups worked at his house, and he had all sorts of stories, just sharing how thankful he was and that sort of thing. But a lot of these homeowners had stories like that, and they told us if they want to talk, sometimes that's just how they're coping with it, so always take the time to listen to them, talk with them, and share the gospel with them if you can. Jim? That area, at least where at the point we were at, was most of the Tennessee Baptist type stuff. This was, I don't know, 4 months after the event had happened, so I guess FEMA was there before, but I'm not sure. Anybody else?
Is there any good Bible studies that stuck out to you?
There was the first night they paired us up and they wouldn't let us be with people we knew. And they were talking about testimonies and sharing your testimonies, and I'd never done that before, so that was one that stood out, was how to share your testimony. There was, so funny story, so they also had a ping pong table on the upstairs portion where we were sleeping, and so of course we're college kids, so we're playing ping pong, and we didn't realize there was another group of older gentlemen sleeping in the room behind us. And so we're playing ping pong. I think it's like 9:30 or 10 o'clock, and so we're getting ready to go to bed around 10. And so that next morning at breakfast, one of the older guys, he got up because it was a big group breakfast with all the volunteers that are there, and he got up and it was like, he was so thankful to see such a large group of college kids there. He said, last night they were playing ping pong till like 10 o'clock, and he said, I was almost ready to come out and say something to them, but then I heard them doing their devotional. And he was like, that is so great that at your guys', and it was all our group led. So the oldest person there was like 22 or 23. And so they were super blessed to see that we were there serving, doing the devotions. And they said that really touched their hearts. But they asked us the next night if we could be done by like 9:30. So we were done by 9:30 the next night. But anybody else? Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They said on some of the properties they had graded out over 20 feet of sand, and there was still more grading that they needed to get done. I mean, just insane. And the one house we were installing the girder at, it just everywhere you could see it was just a big field of sand, and they still had there was a guy in a bulldozer out there all day just moving sand. So it was pretty catastrophic out there, what they had to go through. But if you ever get the chance, that picture, let's see where it's at. So that is a lake that they have up there in Elizabeth. I didn't take that picture, but it's a beautiful, beautiful area with the mountains. And the city of Elizabethton's also, it's a real quiet town, but it's another beautiful, beautiful small town. So.
When you showed that first picture of the Baptist student union there, how many teenagers come to the event?
There's a lot. Let's go back to that. Let's see here. Usually I don't know how many chairs we set up, but there you go. But the building's always full for those services. And throughout the day, there's probably 20 to 30 people there. Well, maybe not at all times, but usually 10 to 15 all time. And then during the well, you're probably over 100 people.
They go around churches and that type of thing?
Mm-hmm. Yep, so on Tuesday's the well, and then on Wednesdays they do what's called a $2 lunch. And so they'll have a church in the Chattanooga area. They'll bring a lunch. And so some churches, they'll do like barbecue and brisket. Some churches will do sandwiches. But it's just a way for them to... Most of the churches are ones that their pastor is preaching either that week or one of the future weeks. And so they get to come in, see what it's like, and then their pastor is going to come preach one of the services.
But they don't go out and actually have a team that goes out to churches.
Mm-mm.
They used to do that years ago.
Anybody else? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, I just lost my train of thought. It's gone. Anybody else? Oh yeah, it's grown a lot. It's super super nice up there. Yeah, we enjoyed it. It was a great trip.
Okay, guys, anything else tonight, or anybody want to share another, a mission trip or something that you've gone on? We got about 50. Oh, yeah, lots of cold showers in Katrina. Yeah, yeah. So, I was thinking, Levi, when you was up there, like the houses that were still standing, most of those you could fix. I mean, Katrina, remember the X's they'd always have on it, how many people was found there and all that type of thing. But they had X's, they'd gone through. But they'd be just neighborhoods and neighborhoods of just hundreds of houses just empty. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was part of it. Yeah, yeah. But like I said, so Levi, was there a lot of houses just empty?
No, I think when we got there, they had most of that stuff taken care of. And I don't think they had much in terms of houses destroyed, at least, or if they did, they already had those cleared out. And when we got there, it was a lot of just fixing houses, existing houses, which is what a lot of the other crews did. And we were doing more of the new build type stuff.
Okay, okay. Well, guys, anything else?
When I lived in Florida, this last year that I went down there, they had bad hurricane down there. And Fort Myers, Naples, where I was from. And you go down the road and there's a boat. I mean, a big boat.
Yeah.
Sitting in the middle of the street. Little Yankee, we used to go over there. And you'd look up and there were frames of houses, just wiped clean. You just saw the concrete houses. There was no windows, no roof, just the building. It was,
Yeah, with the hurricanes, it would just devastate blow them down and everything else. Yeah, yeah.
the whole time I was down there, that bad. I was there for 47 years and never seen anything like that.
Tom?
But
I'm
one,
just glad I live here.
Yeah,
one good thing that did Katrina was the education of knowing what to do to try to prevent the next one. With the levee system that they reinstalled and knowing what Lake Pontchartrain was gonna do and everything, they did a lot of work since then. And that was the good part,
yeah. Well, BW, how many months? I mean, like you said, we took 5 trips down there. That was spread out over a year, maybe, or 6 months or something.
After we pull the sheetrock out, they charge us $300 to take a jug of floor off, and in 20 minutes, they spray that whole house and charge us $300. And we bought 2 or 3 sprayers to give them down there to, pass out before they can do their thing. Even Brian can do that.
I don't know. That's pretty technical, BW. I told Levi when we went to build, I know when I first got here, we went to Michigan, and man, we framed up a big church, and I think I carried all the 2x4s. I said that's my level of expertise is carrying boards. So, See, Levi, you've not gone on a trip until BW goes with you. Yeah, it's been. I tell you what, God has blessed us so much, and we've done a lot of mission trips, and that was with the men's ministry at one time. When Promise Keeper was so big with racial reconciliation, and so I think we might have done that a couple times with Mike and maybe Joe Blessing. Boy, that was a fun time too. So yeah. Anything else? Yes.
I just want to say that the orphanage has been super blessed with the Millers. They have, when they start a project, they don't go home until it's finished.
Mm-hmm.
They don't stop. They got to finish, and they are a blessing for the orphanage
Yeah.
and for myself.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Good deal. That's Andrea. She's like a slave driver. When she gets these guys working, they don't stop. So yeah. That's good. Yeah. Anything else? Right. I think I think God just blesses us for doing, for that and having that heart. So yeah, they can do enough. So, okay. Well, let's go ahead and stand. I'm going to ask Edward, won't you close us in prayer?